This podcast contains excerpts from New Soul Radio shows. For the full listening experience with music, visit newsoulradio.com. That's NUSOL radio.com. This is Soul Say.
The following thoughts and opinions do not represent New Soul Radio, Soul Say and Company, or any of our affiliates, advertisers, or sponsors.
You're listening to Dr. Shirlyn Speaks on newsoulradio.com.
Good evening. Welcome to WSOL New Soul Radio, and this is Dr. Shirlyn Speaks. Thank you. Hopefully, you guys are returning from our first show last week, and it was an amazing show for me. And I hope that you received some things out of it that would help you move forward. We talked about a little bit of kind of somewhat everything, but our focus was on toxic people. And I know that as you guys were listening to the show, because as I replayed and I listened to it live with you, I was like, yes, I know several of those people and how it fit into what it is that I call life. Hopefully we're moving forward today, because I got to go to a really tough place for me and talk about something that is an Achilles heel for me. So I'm giving you guys Dr. Shirlyn Speaks, Dr. Shirlyn Secrets. As we move forward, I'm going to talk about forgiveness. And that is something that has been so very difficult for me. And it's something that I've had to continue to work through over a period of time. And we're going to talk about how that looks and how that looks for you. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to get it all in at one time, but we possibly are going to get it in over two, because this is very difficult, not only for me, but it's possibly difficult for you. So I'm going to talk about in relationships, and I'm not just talking about relationships that are between your significant other and yourself. I'm talking about relationships between your parents, siblings, just your friends, and how it can be difficult to forgive when you feel wronged. And so I'm going to give you just some insight into how it's been for me, even as a therapist. And I have to keep saying this, a clinician. It's difficult because we're human too. And I'm showing you the human side of me. I'm being very vulnerable with you all and showing you the humanness that I also portray. And so I just want you guys to hear this. We're going to talk about it, hoping to get feedback, and we're going to move forward to some of the programming that we have scheduled, or that I have scheduled for us today. So give me just a few minutes. Let's go pay some bills, and we'll be right back.
Supporters of this show can join us on Patreon, where for only $5 a month, you can access all past shows and exclusive content. Join now at patreon.com/SoulSayCo. That's patreon.com/SOLSEICO. Want to answer one of our questions, or have a song or artist request, or do you just want to leave us some feedback? Call the New Soul Radio voicemail at 312-945-6376. That's 312-945-6376. Remember, we may play your message on air.
So welcome back to WSOL New Soul Radio with Dr. Shirlyn Speaks. So I'm going to start by telling you it's been a very difficult road for me for forgiveness. And it has taken me probably until the age of now to kind of get it together with how I'm going to forgive and how I have to work towards forgiveness. And that's not saying I'm being perfect, but I feel that sometimes that people go out of their way sometimes to betray and hurt you. And so because people know how to get you, they tend to do that. And so for me to be able to forgive, it's taken a long effort. And, using my Christianity, my faith has been something that has been sustainable through these hurts and wounds and all the things that I felt. And so definitely praying about it. But I had to remember that if I'm going to be forgiven, I have to forgive. And so that is something that I've continued to just challenge myself to do and continue to try to find ways to move past it. So I will tell you that my biggest thing is if I feel you've disrespected me, if you could see my face, that's the thing that just sends me to the moon. And so I have to worry, and I have to think about that. Not people are not necessarily meaning to disrespect you. Sometimes it is they're feeling a certain way and they let it bubble over, and you're the person that catches it. I had this conversation with someone yesterday. The old me, I got a teapot of information spilled at me yesterday from someone. And I really wasn't expecting it. And it took me by surprise. It took me by shock. And I'm sitting there with my mouth open because I definitely was not expecting it from somebody, and this person in particular. And I had my mouth wide open. Now, if you guys know me, you know I'm not speechless. I always have something to say. But in this instance, I had to be quiet. And I said, you know what? This is not about me. Now, I might have contributed to how that person was feeling unknowingly, but this was not about me. And for that person to go completely ballistic and expressing themselves and how they did that to me, and I'm their supervisor, I had to take a little step back. So I said, I had to pray. And in the midst of this parade of words and assault of words that I was receiving, I said, let it not be me, God. Let it not be me that responds, because the me is not going to be a good thing. So I'm like, I need you to respond. And so my path was clear from then that I'm not going to respond to this situation. I'm going to let this marinate until I can cool down and I can say what I need to say. But the important part that I noticed was I didn't even get as excited or frustrated as I normally would. Yes, it was disrespectful, but I knew the place that it was coming from. So I had to address it, put on my clinical hat, take off my Shirlyn hat, and look at it from that path. And so one of the things that we want to talk about is how do you become even powerful to go to the place that you have to go to for forgiveness, because that's a mild story of things that have occurred. I could tell you so many other, and that I had to choose to take care of Shirlyn and cut people off, and kind of goes back to that toxic environment that we were talking about last week. But this week, I want to ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself if you're actually ready to forgive. That's where we start. Are you actually ready to forgive? And sometimes realizing that it really doesn't work until you're ready. People can say, oh, please forgive me. Please forgive me. If you're not ready to forgive them, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Yes, you can say, oh, I forgive you because you want to seem like the bigger person. Yes, you've done this. Realize that there is no rush to forgiveness. And so that everyone has to forgive at his or her own pace, and allow yourself to just move through this process naturally. But this is what I can't allow you to do. Just stay stuck there. You cannot just stay stuck there. And so sometimes we carry this hate and this resentment and all these things for years that messes you up entirely in your life, because you just really cannot just focus on what's in front of you. You keep focusing on what's in the rearview mirror. So one of the things you might have to do is that, yes, while it takes time to forgive, you have to realize that we know that you're hurt at the moment when things occur, and that you might feel an urgency to get over it. Remember, everybody doesn't have that urgency. And sometimes people that hurt you don't even know that they hurt you. And if they do, and it's because they're suffering with their own things going on in their world, they may not give you what we say we need, which is closure. We always feel like we need closure. No response is a response. And that's something that I had to learn. No response is a response. And so those things, you have to move on for you. You're not doing it for them. But if you continue to hold on to those things over and over, it's going to harm your life. They sleep fine at night. They're not thinking about what they did to you. They're not thinking about what they did or said to Shirlyn. What they're doing is getting a good night's rest. And my mind is up ruminating and thinking like, how could they be sleeping with this? They know that they did this to hurt me. Oh my God, how could you even, and they're going on with their life. But guess what point Shirlyn is stuck at? Back at the point of hurt. And so I'm like, why would I give them this type of power? And I'm stuck and they moving forward with their life. Why would I give them that type of power? So it took a while for me to get that through my head. The key to moving forward is forgiveness. So the other thing I want to talk to you about as we're moving forward in this section is we're talking about acknowledgement. So acknowledgement that it's not going to be easy. And I kind of already said that. You're acknowledging that this is not an easy task, but it takes time, it takes effort, it takes work to move forward from that place of hurt. And so people have gone through divorces, people have gone through the breakups, and it's hard. And especially the first time you see that person out with somebody else, and they seem to be having a very good time. Oh, that's just for my benefit. They ain't having that good of a time. They could be. And it has to be okay with you. As you move forward, it's not something that you can control. So those are things that, I'll try to forgive, I'll try to move forward. But sometimes, and I hear this often with those that have gone through divorces, as they see their ex-partner out with somebody, they can't get over the hurt that they have done to them. And it brings it all back because now you with somebody else. I'm sitting over here by myself because you didn't know how to behave. Really? And I had to talk a friend down. And I'm not saying names, but I had to talk her down off the ledge. And it's not Kim, you all. I had to talk another friend down because she was about to get into a physical altercation when she saw her soon-to-be ex out with a person who she decided was the girlfriend. And by all means, it looked like it. But she really, I had to remind her, you knew that when you decided that you were going to go ahead and go through with this divorce, that this was something that you were going to see. But that didn't feel good. I know it didn't feel good. But you would thank him later on because guess what? She's going to end up with him. You've had your turn. You know what this looks like. You know where this gets you. He isn't going to change. He's already told you this. Know this. Move forward. You're right. Okay. I don't have bail money. So don't get into altercations. And I want to say this show does not provide bail money. The number 3 thing, rethink your definition of forgiveness. What is your definition? So in saying these things, I've asked you a couple questions. I want to drop this number for you guys, 312-945-6376. Again, 312-945-6376. And you can call in, leave a message, and make it clear because we might play it on the radio. Okay? All right, this is your voicemail line. I want you to think about this. What's your definition of forgiveness? For me, it is I have to forgive you enough not to even think about it anymore. Or I had to learn that I can forgive you, but I'm not forgetting the lesson that I learned from you. So I have to incorporate that lesson learned into what it is that I do now. So some people say that their definition is condoning what the other person did is forgiveness. I want you to think about that. Condoning. No, that might be your definition now, but I'm going to work to help you change that. Giving in. That's not giving in. It's not forgiveness. I'm going to turn the other cheek. And my thing is always, if I turn one and you hit me in it, you're going to hit me in the other one next. So I'm like, man, can't turn the other cheek. Just joking. Pretending that nothing happened at all, or that it really wasn't such a big deal. Some of us have the tendency to do that. Forcing yourself to get along with someone who you may feel will hurt you again. If you feel like any of these things are true, you're going to be very reluctant to forgive. And so instead, let's try changing our definition. So forgiveness is, again, about freeing yourself and freeing yourself from the grudge that you hold, and realizing that it actually puts a damper on your energy, because you're the person, like I said, that's up at night thinking about what, oh, they wronged me. Oh, they treated me so bad. Oh, I can't believe after all I've done. And if you've heard yourself say these words, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The other thing is forgiveness is about moving on. I said that. So you can live your life the way that you deserve to live it. And so you're stuck back thinking about, in 1975, so-and-so did something to me. In 1985, so-and-so did something to me. Girl, I don't even remember that I did that in 1985. 1995, I can't tell you what I did. So I apologize to you. That's my first, I apologize. I don't remember what I did. I'm sorry. I really don't. But people are holding on to that you did these things to them. You don't even remember that you did them. It wasn't meant the way that it was taken. And even if it was, you don't remember. Sometimes you just don't remember. And that you don't even know that someone took it that way. So one of the things, again, is having open and honest conversations in that moment. Don't go home, ruminate on it, think about it all night, come back and not say something because you've calmed down. And sometimes it's not the best thing if you're going to be explosive to explode on the person, but it's another thing to call them and say, you know what, you really hurt my feelings. How would I know if you didn't tell me? How would I know? So I'm just using me as an example. So another thing is forgiveness is about refusing to replay those past hurts in your mind over and over again, and to instead choose to savor the beauty life has to offer right now. So again, living in the here and now. We talked about that. I can't live back there. I'm going to live with what's going on right now. And so it's also about cleaning your slate and living up to what your potential is. I have a clean slate for those that are in my life. I'm walking through some things right now that are like landmines. And so I have to apologize to people that maybe I've hurt, not knowingly, but also I'm expecting some possible apologies as well. And so if I don't get them, though, I'm okay, because at the end of the day, at night, I sleep well. Can you say the same? So those are things that we say we're going to talk about in just a moment when we come back from paying our bills. Don't forgive and forget. And this is a difficult conversation to have. It's up next. Let's go pay some bills.
Take New Soul Radio with you wherever you go. Download the New Soul Radio app in the Google Play or Apple App Store by searching New Soul Radio. That's NUSOL Radio. If you have what it takes to host your own radio show, hit us up at teamsose.com and drop your info. That's teamsose.com.
SOLSCI. So say.
Suffering in silence doesn't have to be your reality. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime. But you can get out. The Slip Out app was designed to give victims and survivors of domestic violence useful yet practical tips, advice, and information on how to leave, how to heal, and how to prevent future abuse. Download the Slip Out app for free on Google Play or the Apple App Store. There is a way out.
Imagine that this radio spot is about your business.
It's easier than you think.
Text 630-465-5742 to get started. That's 630-465-5742.
And so we're back with WSOL, New Soul Radio, and Dr. Shirlyn Speaks. So I told you this is kind of going to be a hard section to talk about. Don't forgive and forget. To say the least, it is definitely a massive, and I'm having a hard time even saying the word. You guys say, this is something, forgive and forget. This is something that we're taught as kids. It's a massive contradiction. It is. And I laugh. I couldn't even say the word because I know that some of you guys are sitting there shaking your heads like, that's a contradiction. It is. It is. But The only thing that you can do is remember that you can only forgive when you remember what has happened. And so it's important, like I said earlier, to learn that in this forgiving season, that you have to also learn from the lesson that you've been taught. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to continue to bring it up. Now, that's something that we always do in relationships. But you remember when, and I am not perfect, because I will go back to something that when I met you in 1992, this is blah, blah, blah. When I met you in 2001, you had on a black this, and you had on this kind of jacket, and I will remember all of that stuff. I will remember everything. And especially when we're in the middle of a heated battle, I'm going to remember it. I'm going to bring it forward. It's coming with me. Now, I said I forgot. I forget it. I'm bringing it forward with me. But that's the baggage that and you should see my face as I'm talking about it, because it's so real. I'm wearing it. I'm bringing it with me. This is the luggage that I have that's weighing me down, because God knows I have all of the stuff that was ever done to me on my back, and it's baggage, and it weighs you down. It really weighs you down. And so the thing that I have to remember and continue to say is that, you know what? I don't want to pack these bags with me. When I travel, I want to pack what's necessary, what's right here, what's right now, what I need to be focused on, not something that someone did to me. And then I just put it in a suitcase and I'm dragging it along too. That looks awfully crazy. So I want you to think about that as you're going through these things, that all of these days, for every single thing that's happened to you that you never let go of, think of it as baggage. You drag that along with you every time you move. Your car is already packed. There's just enough room for you to get in, barely, because you have all of this stuff that you're dragging with you. So in this thing, you talk about painful situations, and we know how they have definitely disrupted our growth, our learning, and all those things. Also, you need to talk about that when it brings us happiness. Do we even allow ourselves to embrace it? No, because see, this is going to be just like it was back then. I met this nice guy, and unfortunately, he has to pay the cost because your ex did what he did. And that's not fair to him. Let's talk about that. And we're going to talk about that relationship stuff as we move further. And we talked a little bit about it. I was like, relationships equal hard work, equal reciprocity. And so you have to continue to put in the work. But he shouldn't have to pay, nor should she have to pay for what your ex did. But that's things that we bring forward with us. And so somehow we have to figure out how to unpack it. And that's one of the things that we talk about in getting ready for the next person that you have coming into your life, about healing. Because if not, they are going to pay for the sins of the other people. You have to heal yourself by yourself so that when you're ready, you can move forward with you alone and not that packed car driving with your kneecaps. I want you to think about that, because all of your other stuff you've dealt with. And so now you can just have that one bag that's sitting on the front seat or on the back seat, and you're driving with the things that you have to have. So I hope that makes sense to you. I want you to also look at what your values are. Reaffirm your values and use them to develop resourceful ways of coping. And we talked about having and developing coping mechanisms probably within the first couple of shows. And so as we're coming back and we're talking about this on Dr. Shirlyn Speaks, what we want to do is look at what our values are. And so that's important to us about how we recognize if our expectations are too high. Now, I'm one that I will tell you, my expectations of people are super, super high. And I had to learn that those were my expectations, and that if someone didn't meet me where I expected them to meet me, that's my issue, not their issue, because I placed something on them. And so it took me forever to get there, because once I was disappointed, I didn't look at the person the same way. And so I'm like, my value system is not their value system. What I expect of Shirlyn and what I give of Shirlyn is what I expected back. But I had to realize that's just who I am, not who they are. And so it's really okay. So you have to get to a point of where you realize that your expectations are just those. And sometimes we don't communicate what our expectations and our needs and wants are to people. We expect people to know those things. I was one that did not communicate those, but I expected people to know what it is that I wanted and what I expected. And that's not fair. So I sent them all the way around the bush without giving them the truth about what it is that I really wanted and expected. So I figured now that it's always best when I start a relationship with somebody, friendship, whatever, I tell them I could be high maintenance. A friendship with me is going to require these things. This is what I expect from you. And I think that that's fair so that they know, hey, you know what you're getting into. And I know what it is that you expect and require of me. And so I think that that starts it out on even footing, even kill, and we move on from there. Now, if you choose not to be my friend, I said being friends with me is a high price. It is. And so if you choose that, sometimes, it's best to know up front who you're dealing with. And I'm chuckling because it's the truth. And so one of the things that you have to consider is that because sometimes when we don't communicate those things, that this is stuff that you start to question when you get hurt, right? And so by that, I mean, you have to think about, why did that person's actions harm you or hurt you more than anybody else? Why? So then you have to think about, why is it important that they acted any differently than anyone else? See, you're placing these things on them and not have given them the information up front about what it is that you expect. And so one of the things you have to do is that if this happens in the future, as you are working towards and healing yourself, what would happen if they acted differently in the future? Are they allowed to come back? Are they allowed to interact with you? Are they allowed to apologize for what happened? And if you answer that question, no, which I'm sure some of us did, we won't talk about all of that. No, I'm just joking. We're going to talk about it. It is difficult to accept somebody's apology. And so for me to accept your apology, that means I have to have worked on myself a lot. And because I'm not believing necessarily that you're going to be different. So I'll say, okay, I'm going to forgive you. But in the back of my mind, I already know you're going to mess up again. So why am I'm just telling you what you want to hear. But when I continue to work from a place of, this is not about them, this is about me, then I could see that there needed to be a difference. This is not about them. Because I've been hurt before, I'm putting those expectations on a person who has done nothing to me except for say hello. They didn't say anything but hello. But automatically, in my mind, oh my God, they're going to do the same thing that X, Y, and Z did. They're going to say or do something to hurt me. I already know because that's what so-and-so did. And they look just like them wearing that blue shirt. I know so-and-so is going to do X, Y, and Z. So in my mind, I've already condemned them, executed, and I'm not going to talk to you much because I already know what's going to happen. So that's not fair. It really isn't fair. And so these are things that you guys have to continue to question yourself about. And so what is it that they can actually do to redeem themselves? If anything, what would it take? If you have someone in your life who's harmed you in your mind, as far as betrayal or things that they actually did, and they wanted to come back to you and apologize to you, what would redemption look like? Difficult question, right? Call in 312-945-6376. 312-945-6376. I want to hear what you have to say. What would they have to do for redemption? And is there any way to redeem themselves? So one of the things that you kind of have to also look at is sometimes you have to dissociate from the situation and the person who hurt you. And by that, I mean, there's two things that you can do. You have to take over kind of where they kind of left off. You're not thinking about the things that they necessarily did. You might imagine yourself walking into a theater where you're alone and the traumatic situation that you have just had is playing out on a screen. And then you could imagine yourself coming out of your own body, and you watch one version of yourself sitting there in the theater watching another version of yourself relive the incident. How would that be? And you could play it backwards. What would you do? What would you say if you had the opportunity to relive this? And some of the things that you might see and say could be ridiculous. Some of the things you might say, well, I told him this time. I didn't get the chance to tell him this time, but I'm going to tell him now. I'm going to tell him how I feel. And believe it or not, sometimes it can even change the way that you feel just by going back and replaying it in your head, seeing it replayed out on the screen. And a lot of times we see in different movies that maybe scenes of things that have happened to us. And you say, oh, this is what I would say. If I had to say it again, and I had to do it again, or I saw it again, this is how I would react or how I would respond. And if you twirl it backwards, this is how it would look now. And so I can say that at 20, my way of thinking was a whole lot different than it is at 40 something. And so I am like every single day, I'm trying to work through those things that have bound me. And I don't give those things power anymore. I'm telling you, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Dr. Shirlyn had to work on Dr. Shirlyn, because I'm telling you, the girl that I was at 20, oh, no forgiveness. I don't care. No forgiveness. And I'm sure that my mother is listening to this and saying, if you guys only knew, she's not lying. She is telling the truth. The woman that I am now, I'm working on my forgiveness. And I have to chuckle because people who know me, they know, oh, it is the Achilles heel for me. So we're going to go pay some bills. We're going to be back in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about understanding your part in the situation.
This is America.
Peace on left, justice on the right. Peace on left, justice on the right.
This is America.
This is the reason Kaepernick was taking a knee.
Heartbroken when I saw that video. I almost couldn't finish it.
Abuse of power.
We gotta start making changes.
There's a virus in police departments across this country.
If I rule the world,
cops arrest.
Good cops know who these bad cops are.
free all my sons.
You have every right to be angry.
Can you tell me why? Every time I step outside, I see my die.
You have no right to perpetrate violence on the very communities that you are standing up for.
A lot of people have been using my father's words.
That all men are created equal.
The only pathway to do this is through nonviolent means.
I'm letting you know that it ain't no gun they make that can kill my soul.
We will bring you justice, I promise.
But if God got us, then we gon' be alright.
Start making some changes.
Want 24/7 access to past shows,
exclusive content,
and VIP on-air opportunities? Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Solsei. That's SOLSEICO.
Solsei.
Want more dope content? Check out Solsei's YouTube by searching Solsei on that Solsei Chicago.
And we're back on WSOL, New Soul Radio, Dr. Shirlyn Speaks. So you guys, I asked a really difficult question before I took a little break and we paid some bills. So we're going to start right back over there. It's really hard, really difficult to think about what could that person do to get some redemption from you. I'm going to ask that question again. And I really want you to take some time to think about it as we're moving through this process of forgiveness. So one of the things that we have to also do is question yourself. What part did you play in this situation? And I know y'all, I didn't do nothing. I know what you said. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. It's a possibility that you did something, because it's a possibility that I know that in the situation on yesterday, I played a role in what spiked this person's whole temperament. I unknowingly spiked this person's temperament. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. Had I known that, I would have responded differently. And this person wouldn't have gone off like they did had I known and I responded the way that they needed for me to respond. But this was the thing. Unwritten expectations and assumptions. And so while I'm assuming that they know that I'm really busy and that I'm responding as I can, they needed responses right away. And that wasn't communicated in that manner. So when this person got really upset about series of issues, it exploded, but it exploded at me. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, I must be on an episode of Punk'd, because I know I kept looking over my shoulder left and right. Like, I know that person is not talking to me. Like, oh my God. I kept looking around. And if you could see me moving, you would be laughing. My son was in the room and he knows his mother. He was looking at me like, uh-oh, this is not going to go so well for this person on the other end of the phone. He knows me. And his nickname, I'm going to tell you guys, for me, is the Iron Fist. So he's like, the Iron Fist, let someone get away with that? Oh my God, you have changed, Mom. I was like, I'm working on my change. I'm preaching it. I'm going to live by it. So it was difficult for me. So I had to work through it. But the thing is to work backwards. What did I contribute to making her feel that she needed to vent the way that she did? And it wasn't the right thing for her to do, but it's how she chose to respond at that moment. And so I let her live in that moment. I didn't say anything. I just listened. And that was the right way. Now, after she calmed down, she was really mortified that she'd had that response to me. Mortified. And I have not had the conversation yet. But the conversation is going to come from a place of, this is what your expectations were. This is what I thought. This was the wrong thing to do. However, you chose to handle it. It wasn't the right way. I hear you. So this is what I can do to rectify this situation. Had you had this conversation with me a while back, we wouldn't have ever gotten to this place. Didn't know. So if I don't know, I can't respond. So you guys have to think about this. It's easy to have the other person take all the blame in a situation. That's the easiest thing, because you don't have to accept any. And that's hard. You're taking away the responsibility for other people, but also realize that you're not just a victim. That's hard. But you're a participant in your life. And so you can't just sit on the side of the road and say, oh, this happened to me. I didn't do anything. Something happened. So you have to look at before, during, and even after what has occurred. How and what role did I play? The thing to help you get in the mood of thinking about how you're going to forgive and what you're going to do as you're moving forward is, one of the things that I do practice is mindfulness. I have to practice mindfulness. And people say, this is the craziest thing. Like you may not even know what mindfulness is, but it's about meditation. And so as we talk about it, it's the solution to a lot of the different things that we go through. I wear my stress. I carry it in my shoulders. I carry it in my stomach. I carry it in all those places that are tense and they suffer. So I feel like I have to go get a massage every couple of weeks because my tension is crazy. If you touch me, it's like, that's where I carry it. Some people are really good at throwing things off and they become unbothered. I have a friend that I was telling you about last week. And her name's Ebony. Ebony is the queen of unbotheredness. Okay. She is the queen of unbothered. Things can be going on behind her. And I tell her there's an explosion going on in the neighborhood or something's on fire. She's in a swing set looking forward. All this is going on behind her. And she's just la, 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 la. Nothing bothers her. Nothing bothers. She's the queen of being unbothered. And she will tell you that. I tell her that all the time. For me, I'm running around trying to get a hose. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to put the fire out. I need to make sure that the ambulance has been called. I'm over there trying to do first aid. Oh, I'm going to wear it. I'm going to do what I need to do because I'm used to dealing with those types of situations. And then after it's over with, I'm going to pass out because I've done all I can do. And I'm taking care of everybody. But guess who I didn't take care of? Shirlyn. And so all of that stuff is going on. And I'm trying to be in the middle of the chaos and blah, blah, blah. So when I've had one of those days and I feel like I'm the firefighter or whatever is going on, I have to come home and I have to meditate and I have to use mindfulness and a mindfulness approach. And so being to where I really am and observing how I'm really feeling, how things happen. I'm looking at my thoughts, how I'm feeling about a certain situation, sensations within my own body. Perceptions of what what has happened or what's occurred, and then trying to make some sense of it. And then also trying to get to a place of being non-judgmental. And everybody says, oh, I don't judge anyone. Yes, you do. We all judge. We all do. We all do. And so you have to remember, though, that's the way that you can eliminate your guilt is by becoming and coming from a place of non-judgmental behavior. And then the other thing is knowing that I'm not going to allow myself to feel any negative. I'll allow myself to feel any negative emotion that comes up. I do. But instead of fighting it, I observe it because I'm wondering if I don't get past this, if I'm not allowing myself to move forward, then I'm going to allow myself to feel the hurt that I was feeling. I can't say, oh no, I'm just going to throw it off. No, I have to sit with my feelings. And so I do. So I may take a couple of days and shut down on you. That's the best thing I could possibly do for you and me. If I shut down for me, that means I'm allowing myself to sit with my feelings. And that's the better thing than responding. Because when you respond or when I respond off the cuff, it's never the right thing to do for me. And so I've learned that I need to allow myself to sit with my feelings. And so that's in mindfulness for me. And so other things that you can do, whatever seems to work for you, and you're looking at those to lessen whatever you have, those body's fight or flight responses, because things might be going on with you. You're tending to want to fight, which is the 20-year-old me. I've learned to just sit with my response rather than go into flight mode or to fight mode or leave a situation. What I need to do is I decide whether I'm going to take a walk, ride a bike, do whatever it is that I'm going to do. Take deep breaths, watch something that's creative and funny for me to try to lessen the emotion and the intensity that I'm feeling. And so other things are, I also have to, after a while, put myself in other people's shoes. And that's the most difficult thing because I don't care what shoes they had on. And that's the truth. You say these, I'm saying this stuff, and I know that you guys are probably feeling. I'm not putting myself in their shoes because I wouldn't have reacted that way. You don't know that. You don't know what you will do if you're in a certain similar situation. You don't know. And then when you find yourself saying some of the same things that they said or they did, you're like, oh, and that's if you're real with yourself, because you may not be being real with yourself. You may just think, well, but you have to realize that it's easy to say what you would or you wouldn't do if you were in certain situations. And the truth is, none of us really know. And we all have those girlfriends or friends that say, now, if that was me, I would. The first time that they say, if that was me, I would, I stop listening to what they have to say, because that tends to get you into certain situations and it gets us all hyped up, right? To go and say or do something that we would not ordinarily do. So I stopped listening to, if I were you, I would. And I think about what would I want to do. I filter information. And I think that you have to do the same thing. You have to filter some of the information that is being thrown at you. So just imagine that you've had to put yourself in that person's shoes and try to understand the way that they behaved. And it's helpful to go back and look at why things happen the way that they happen, maybe for them, as opposed to what happened with you. So ask yourself, maybe why they reacted or responded to you. Are they trying to protect something? What is it that they feel that they're trying to protect? And what kind of basic skills maybe did they learn from their family? How I learned to communicate is a lot different than how you learn to communicate, because we grew up two different ways. And so you have to kind of think of that way. Is it possible to talk to the person when they're calm or they're centered on something and ask them, what are your experiences? And I know that in a relationship, I had to look at things differently, because the way that I was taught to communicate was being direct. I'm very direct in certain situations. And in other situations, my family is very quiet. I would never ask somebody, how much did they make? How much do you make? I'm mortified when somebody would ask that. And I'm like, that's not something we discuss. That's not what we do in my family. But in other people's in families, everybody knows. And this is normal conversation. So when people ask certain situations, I'm just sitting there looking like, that's not something we discuss. That's not how I communicate with my family. For Christmas, I even said this, Christmas for us is a big time, a big deal. We're loud. We talk about each other. We just do all kinds of things, and we're loud. And I have to keep saying we're loud because we are, and we enjoy spending time with each other, whatever that looks like. Some families, they don't do that. They're quiet. I don't understand what a quiet Christmas is like, because we're loud. So it's always that difference. And what it looks like. Christmas isn't Christmas for me unless I'm in Longview, Texas. That's home. So if I'm not home in Texas, that's a problem for me. And so in that instance, I can't be loud. I'm feeling some other kind of way, and I'm really quiet. And I want to stick to myself because I'm not with my loud family. Notice I keep saying loud. They're going to get me for this, but they can't right now. So one of the things you have to think about is, what could they have been thinking? What could have happened to them in the past to make them do what they did? And I know you guys are saying, oh, you're trying to turn me into a therapist. No, what I'm trying to turn you into is someone that thinks, and thinks not only with your head, you also have to think with your heart. And so those are things that conversation and questions and things that we can talk about. Again, I'm going to drop the number, 312-945-6376, 312-945-6376. Leave me some questions, leave me some feedback, and hopefully we might be able to play you on the air. We all do the best that we can with the skills and knowledge that we have. And I'm going to tell you, it's a difficult thing to come from an unconditional place of love. And I'm telling you, it's something that you have to work on. And and I'm not going to say you're going to unconditionally love every single person. You're not. And I'm not telling you to. What I'm telling you to do is that we have to continue to work on our healing, working on our strength, working on getting to know ourselves in a much deeper place. And we are going to continue to move forward in this journey that we call life. We're going to talk about, even next week, on how that we're going to talk about mediation. We'll continue to talk about how do you shift your thoughts from resentment to being grateful. We'll talk about how you rebuild the trust that was once there, if it's possible to be rebuilt. And it may not be in the way that if you were in a relationship that it was rebuilt, but at some point, maybe even because you've been divorced, you can be friends at some point in time. And maybe right now you're going through that and you can't see that for a future, but I want to just say this, and I'm going to put this and I want to stick a pin in it. Those people, if you have kids with them, are going to be in your life for the rest of your life. Okay. So we got to figure out how we're going to all get along. Okay. So I want to say that next week we're going to come back with more forgiveness, and we're going to talk about how we get through the process, how we continue to move through. And I've given you about 10 or 11 different things to talk about just to give you time over this next week, so that when we come back next Friday for Dr. Shirlyn Speaks, we're going to continue on this journey of love and healing. I'm a woman who is convinced that she deserves the best, and I challenge myself to give the very best, and then I'm living phenomenally. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your week. And I hope to hear you guys and hear what you have to say on next Friday on Dr. Shirlyn Speaks. Hey, you guys, this is Dr. Shirlyn Garrett from Dr. Shirlyn Speaks. I wanted to give you a tidbit of information. If you are in the Chicagoland area and you need counseling, I'm going to provide a resource for you, New Life, New Solutions, and Community Wellness Group. In order to have services, if you have a medical card, you can contact New Life, New Solutions. And if you are a private pay or have private insurance, you can still dial the same number, but it'll be under Community Wellness Group. Our intake coordinator there will be able to help you differentiate which service you would need. You can dial Evelyn Hernandez at 773-308-3362. Again, 773-308-3362. Or Albert Johnson at 773-386-1717. Again, 773-386-1717. That's New Life, New Solutions. So this week's Dr. Shirlyn shout outs. So I have to begin by giving my son the shout out of the week. We have had a wonderful time in Ruston, Louisiana, getting him settled for his senior year at Grambling State University. I've enjoyed spending the time with him. I am so thankful for the young man that he is, and I look forward to seeing who he continues to become. So here's my shout out to Grambling State University, where everybody is somebody. And I thank you for the work that you've helped me do with my son. The next shout out goes to Pharaoh, the wordsmith. You guys can catch him on Monday nights from 10 to 12 here on WSOL New Soul Radio, and he has a show for you. Thank you, Pharaoh, for just nudging me on and moving me forward in something that I really wanted to do. My next shout out goes on to Sharita, my dear friend, who keeps me grounded and also keeps me in a little bit of trouble. Sarah, thank you for being there and believing in me, and also just continuing to practice those things that we talk about on a daily basis. To my Harrison, Garrett, and Wilson clan, you guys know I cannot get on here without doing the shout out to you, because I'm sure I do want to come home at some point. So here we go. Here's your shout out. Thank you for just following me, continuing to allow me to be me, and being the wind beneath my wings. To my girl, Tracy, Dr. Tracy Bibbs, thanks for always being there for me as well. Thanks for all the hard work that you do. It does not go unnoticed. And also to my little brother, Deron Strickland, you know who you are and what you mean to me. I don't have to go into great detail, but I just appreciate the friendship that we have. And who knew the first day I walked into your classroom that we would end up this way, and you're about to be doctor too. And I will say it one time only, doctor. So when you're there, you're only going to hear from me once. So I told you that already. And finally, to one of my best friends, Mr. Matthews, you know what you mean to me. Thank you for all of the laughter. Thank you for all of the arguments that we have. And they just continue to make me a better person. Hope you enjoy your day.
Starting a business? Grab Kim Brio's free brand identity checklist to remove the chaos around DIY in your brand. Get it free at kimbrio.com/checklist. That's Kimbrio. BRIO.com/checklist.
Starting a business? Kimbrio's 30-day brand takeover is for you. Get your new website, marketing plan, social media strategy, and all of the training you need in just 30 days. Apply now to see if you qualify for Kimbrio's 30-day brand takeover at www.30daybrandtakeover.com.
This podcast contains excerpts from New Soul Radio shows. For the full listening experience with music, visit newsoulradio.com. That's NUSOL radio.com.